Hello and welcome to another 5-minute video of Geography and the GCSE. In this video, we will be discussing the importance of case studies and providing an example of a case study on earthquakes. Case studies are an essential component of the geography syllabus as they allow students to apply their knowledge to real-world situations. They provide examples of how geographical concepts and ideas can be applied to real-life situations, which help students to understand the relevance and importance of what they are learning. When it comes to the Geography of Cambridge syllabus, case studies are particularly important. They are a key part of Papers 1 and 2, which test students' understanding of geographical concepts and their ability to apply that knowledge to real-world situations. Case studies are also important for Paper 3, which tests students' ability to analyze and evaluate geographical issues. Remember, you are not going through Paper 3 if you are doing Paper 4, alternative to coursework. Now, let's move on to an example of a case study on earthquakes. Earthquakes are a fascinating and complex natural phenomenon that can have a significant impact on people and the environment. To create a case study on earthquakes, we need to follow a few steps. Step 1. Choose a location. The first step is to choose a location that has experienced significant earthquake activity. One excellent example is the 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami in Japan. This earthquake, which occurred on March 11, 2011, had a magnitude of 9.0 and caused significant damage and loss of life in Japan. Step 2. Gather information. The next step is to gather information about the earthquake. This should include details such as the location, magnitude, and duration of the earthquake, as well as any significant aftershocks. It is also essential to gather information about the impact of the earthquake, including the number of deaths and injuries, damage to buildings and infrastructure, and the economic impact. Step 3. Analyze the impact. Once you have gathered the necessary information, it is time to analyze the impact of the earthquake. This should include an assessment of the immediate impact, such as the number of deaths and injuries, as well as the long-term impact, such as the economic impact and the impact on the environment. Step 4. Evaluate the response. The final step is to evaluate the response to the earthquake. This should include an assessment of the effectiveness of the emergency response and the government's efforts to rebuild and recover after the earthquake. When creating a case study on earthquakes, it is essential to include all of this information and to explain the relationship between the earthquake and the geographical concepts and ideas covered in the syllabus. For example, students should be able to explain how plate tectonics and the movement of the Earth's crust can lead to earthquakes and how human activities, such as the construction of buildings on unstable ground, can exacerbate the impact of earthquakes. A very important aspect we must pay attention when using case studies is whether they happen in MEDCs or LEDCs. Earthquakes are natural disasters that can cause significant damage and loss of life. When an earthquake strikes, it can affect everything from buildings and infrastructure to the people who live and work in the affected areas. But the impact of an earthquake can vary greatly depending on where it occurs. MEDCs, or more economically developed countries, are typically countries with higher levels of economic development, such as the United States, Japan, or the United Kingdom. These countries generally have more resources available to them to prepare for and respond to natural disasters like earthquakes. They may have better infrastructure, more advanced warning systems, and better equipped emergency services. On the other hand, LEDCs, or less economically developed countries, are typically countries with lower levels of economic development, such as Haiti, Nepal, or many countries in Africa. These countries may have less resources available to them to prepare for and respond to earthquakes. They may have less advanced infrastructure, fewer warning systems, and less equipped emergency services. When we look at case studies of earthquakes, it's important to pay attention to whether they are happening in MEDCs or LEDCs because the impact of the earthquake can be vastly different. In MEDCs, an earthquake may still cause significant damage and loss of life, but the response and recovery efforts may be more effective due to the available resources. In LEDCs, however, the impact can be much more severe, with greater loss of life and long-term damage to the community. For example, let's look at the 2010 earthquake that struck Haiti. This earthquake was a magnitude 7.0 and caused catastrophic damage, with an estimated 230,000 deaths and 1.5 million people displaced. Haiti is an LEDC, and the country already faced challenges with poverty and lack of infrastructure before the earthquake struck. The response and recovery efforts were hindered by a lack of resources, making it difficult to provide aid and support to those in need. In contrast, if we pay attention to the mentioned 2011 earthquake and tsunami that struck Japan. This earthquake was a magnitude 9.0 and caused significant damage, with an estimated 15,000 deaths and 6,000 injured. Japan is an MEDC, and the country had more advanced warning systems and emergency services in place. While the impact of the earthquake was still significant, the response and recovery efforts were more effective due to the available resources. In summary, when we study earthquakes, it's important to pay attention to whether they happen in MEDCs or LEDCs because the impact can be vastly different. By understanding the differences in resources and response capabilities, we can work to improve preparedness and response efforts to help mitigate the impact of earthquakes in the future. In conclusion, case studies are a critical component of the Geography of Cambridge syllabus. They allow students to apply their knowledge to real-world situations and help them to understand the relevance and importance of what they are learning. When creating a case study, it is important to gather all of the necessary information, analyze the impact of the event, and evaluate the response. By doing so, students can gain a deep understanding of the issues involved and develop their analytical and critical thinking skills. One more time, thanks for watching. And if you find this information useful, please click like and subscribe. It helps this channel a lot. Remember, without geography, you are nowhere.